Okay, so at the time I'm recording this, the July 31st, 2025 Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase just wrapped up a couple of hours ago, and overall, I would say the presentation was okay. Like, I really wish we could have got something better for the system that just launched for the Switch 2, seeing as, we're still in that early phase where we're kind of hoping for either more big games or more info on new big games. It was pretty divisive looking across social media. There's a number of people who liked it, a lot of people who really didn't like it. But while I do think there was a lot of fluff and a lot of really boring announcements, like you could not pay me to give a single flying shit about Madden or FIFA or Star Wars Outlaws or Just Dance, I do think there was enough good announcements for it to be at least somewhat decent. Like, we got Monster Hunter Stories 3, we got 2 brand new HD 2D games with The Adventures of Elliot and Octopath Zero, some pretty big deal ports like Sparking Zero and Persona 3 Reload. Pac-Man World 2 is getting the repack treatment like many people were hoping for after the first game, so that's really exciting. A new Katamari game. There wasn't nothing. There was, like I said, it was okay overall. However, after the Direct, within the last couple of hours, a lot of cold water has been thrown on a number of these announcements because of the bane of every physical game collector's existence when it comes to the Switch 2, and that is the fucking game key cards. Woo! God, I'm sick of these things. Like, it is amazing how we have only known about these things for a few months and only had them for a couple months with the launch of the Switch 2, but already I just feel a sense of sickness and just frustration every time I see these key cards, because we were already kind of feeling it early on with the system, even at launch, but this partner showcase has really just hammered home to me, at least, that these game key cards are way too common, and they are just hampering down what could be really exciting physical releases for the Switch 2 and for people who want to collect for them. So like I said, it's only been a couple of hours since the Direct actually happened, but in that time, we have already got the confirmation that Persona 3 Reload, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Octopath Traveler 0, and Pac-Man World 2 Repack are all going to be game key cards. They're not going to be on the actual cartridge. They're going to be a full download that you just need to put the card in for, even though there's nothing actually on the card. And God, does that just completely just blow up any sort of major interest and I know a lot of other people have for getting physical copies of these for the Switch 2, despite the fact that many of us would really like to, but just hampering these physical editions to where they're barely physical, because ultimately key cards are just digital purchases with extra steps that you need to put the card in the system for. It just takes so much fun out of collecting or getting these as actual cartridges. And really the problem with these game key cards, I don't hate them entirely, because I do think these are better than the code in the box, which still happens where game companies will just put a one-time use code in a physical box, and then like literally what's even the point of the box? You have nothing in it except a piece of paper with a code that you've already used. But the issue is with the key cards is they are so much more common than the code in the box. At least the code in the box is pretty rare. We don't get it very often, and there's even been cases where people got mad at it so much that the companies backtracked. That actually recently happened with The Outer Worlds 2. That was going to be a code in the box, but they have since pulled back on that after there was a lot of backlash regarding that game with both that as well as it being $80, and so they changed it to being $70, and they're going to be actually putting a disc in. But whereas you don't see the codes very often, the game key cards were only a few months into the Switch 2, and I swear like 80 to 90% of major third-party games that people have any sort of interest in are key cards for this system. Like some of the only like big third-party games that I can think of as of right now that we know for sure or already have that are physical on the card are Cyberpunk 2077, which that was the big one at launch, which they made the big deal of it was all on card compared to being the key card. Daemon X Machina 2 is confirmed to be Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, which is already out. That's also another one that came at launch that was all on the cartridge. And Sonic Racing Cross Worlds is going to be on cartridge as well, which that one may have changed because I remember seeing that a Sega customer representative emailed to someone who asked them that it was going to be a key card, but then they later said like a month later that it was going to actually be on the cartridge itself. So there may have been a chance that that game changed from the key card due to all the backlash that was happening, or it could have just been a case of miscommunication with the customer representative. So it's hard to say for sure whether the pushback did anything there, but that's the other major one that I can think of that isn't going to be the digital key card. And that's most of the bigger games that I can think of that haven't been confirmed to be this key card. And it's so frustrating as someone who loves to collect physical games to see this used so much, and it just feels like it's another massive push through to just keep pushing more and more towards making gaming all digital, even though this is a medium that has a massive problem with preservation or being able to hold on to digital games. And so, like, who knows how game preservation or ownership of games is going to change once it goes all digital, which I know going all digital is an inevitability, and trying to fight back against it entirely, it's like punching the wind. Like, you can't do anything to it, unfortunately. But with something like the key cards so massively being pushed upon, it just feels like Nintendo is supercharging this to such an insane degree to where collecting physical for the Switch 2 is just, it's disheartening. It's to the point where so many people I've seen now who like to buy physical games are just gonna buy the Switch 1 copy of the game if it's cross-gen, if it's on both, because unfortunately for something like Persona 3 Reload, you're shit out of luck because that's not coming to Switch 1. But in cases where they are, they're just gonna buy the Switch 1 copy and hope for either an upgrade or the Switch 2 will help, like, power up or, like, you know, give an enhancement with the stronger tech capabilities. And I know that a part of this is reportedly on Nintendo, I believe, because I think it's somewhat unclear, but from what I've been able to gather, a part of the reason why a lot of companies are doing this is because Nintendo is only offering 64 gigabyte cards for the Switch 2 with the physical copies. So a lot of companies, if they're making a much smaller game and they don't want to have to pay extra for those larger card sizes, they'll just do the game key cards to reduce costs. So I feel like it's on Nintendo somewhat, but I also imagine a part of it is also on these third-party publishers and developers, because they could still do these if they wanted to. Like I said, Rune Factory Guardians of Ozma, that's not 64 gigabytes, yet they still went through with putting that on the physical cartridge, because Marvelous specifically said they wanted to keep putting the games on card, and they've been dedicated to that. And I highly doubt Daemon X Machina 2 needs a a 64 GB card as well, but they're still going through with it to put in the effort. So I kind of put it on both sides. Yes, Nintendo really needs to start offering more card sizes if this is the case to help circumvent that, but also a lot of these companies have more than enough money to where they could do an actual proper physical game release, and they're just cutting corners to either save money or also if they have the incentive and the desire to push further towards making games all digital, they'll take advantage of that as well. At the very, very least, it seems like Nintendo themselves are not doing the key card thing, because Mario Kart World is all on cart, Donkey Kong Bonanza is all on cart, and I feel like they're going to try and make more use of the 64 GB cards with their own releases, so I guess that's good at the very least, but yeah, the rampantness of keycards, it badly needs to slow down. Like, I don't even necessarily mind it for smaller games, like Bravely Default HD Remaster. I wish that was all on cartridge, but it's the type of game where, okay, it's a remaster of a 3DS game. I can at least say, all right, I can see why you may not totally do a full physical release for that. There's a chance that in the Switch 1, they may not have done a physical release for that altogether, just because they may have not have felt it was worth it. But like Persona 3 Reload and Sparking Zero, these big games that are like very recent, like modern games, and Octopath Zero and Pac-Man World 2 Repack, brand new games that are not ports or remaster. Well, I guess Pac-Man World 2 is a remake, but it's not just like a simple upscaling. But like an Octopath Zero, brand new game, and yet it's also on keycard. And I would not be shocked if we learn a bunch of the other games from this direct are gonna be keycards on the Switch 2. Monster Hunter Stories 3, I think there's a very good chance that's a keycard. Same for Adventures of Elliot. And I think both of those are gonna be really good games, but it's gonna really suck that they're brand new and we don't get a proper physical copy of them for the brand new Nintendo system, where they're probably going to be the most popular and sell the best, especially Adventures of Elliot. The HD 2D games are by far best selling on Nintendo platforms. And I know Nintendo isn't the only one who does stuff like this. Like, Microsoft has very recently been doing physical releases for their games on, like, PlayStation 5, but there's barely anything on the discs. Like, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and Doom the Dark Ages only have like a handful of gigs worth of data on the disc, and you have to download the overwhelming majority of it. So those are kind of the same. I think it's just frustrating with the key cards for Nintendo, because it's funneling the third parties to such an insane degree on this system, and it's so in your face. It's just like, it's inescapable with non-Nintendo publishers right now, and it's seriously just, like I said, throwing a bucket of cold water over any sort of physical collecting for this system. I don't know if there will be enough pushback from fans, or maybe if the game key cards don't sell as well. I know that Cyberpunk was by far the best-selling, like, early third-party game for the Switch 2, although a lot of people said that probably didn't have as much to do with it being all on cartridge, but, you know, who knows? Maybe. I just hope as this system goes along, a lot of publishers, like, either get the message, or Nintendo does offer more cartridge sizes if that's the case, because it's just so disheartening to see this with practically every major third-party game coming to this system, because I want to collect for the Switch 2. I'm really, really liking the system so far, but man, it's frustrating. It's all I can really say. But thank you guys if you're still watching. Let me know what you think of game key cards in the comments. Maybe we can all bitch about it together, and hopefully these companies can get the message. But thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next video.